The story of Prophet Muhammad and his Jewish neighbor. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had a Jewish neighbor, and this neighbor used to try to harm the Prophet by any means he could. As he couldn't do so in the daylight, for fear to be recognized, he chose to operate in the night. So he used to gather as much garbage as he could and put all of it just in front of the door of the Prophet, so that the latter would step over them in the morning while getting out of his house. The Prophet would open the door, see the garbage, laugh a bit. He knew it was his Jewish neighbor, so all he would do was put aside the garbage away from his door as if nothing happened. Though he knew it was his Jewish neighbor who was the mastermind behind that, yet the Prophet's attitude towards his neighbor didn't change at all. Prophet would still treat him with kindness and mercy, for he never reciprocated bad for bad. The Jewish neighbor wouldn't stop his attempts to harm the Prophet until he got sick. He got a terrible fever that nailed him to bed. He was almost in agony. While the Jewish neighbor was lying in his bed in his house, he heard one day the Prophet knock at the door, asking for permission to come in. The neighbor allowed him in, so the Prophet prayed for the Jewish good health and recovery. Jewish neighbor then asked, "How did you know I was sick?" Prophet smiled and said, "Your habit has stopped." And he meant by that what the Jewish used to throw at the doorstep of the Prophet's house. When the Jewish neighbor heard that, he wept a lot. He got so emotional of how generous and kind the Prophet was towards him. The neighbor felt so ashamed of the acts he made. Soon afterwards, he converted to Islam. As you see, it's our attitude and behaviors that are best ambassadors of our religion. It is that make people understand what is Islam about. It's not through the do's and don'ts, not through what's permissible or forbidden. For Islam says it clearly, religion is an attitude. It's a way of life that makes you practice it daily, including being merciful, kind, thoughtful, helpful, modest, generous, and so on. That is Islam, the true one.